Good morning, everybody. It's 13 minutes past 7 o'clock right now, and it is time to visit with our good friend Ron, the car guy, to teach you a little something about your vehicle. And Ronald, last week we touched on something. We said, you know what, that might not be a bad idea to revisit. And you remember the old jingle that was on TV, Libby, Libby, Libby on the label, label, label. You remember that? Well, we're talking about the label, label, label parts.
I haven't heard anyone sing that for quite a while.
You know what we're talking about, though, right?
I do.
All right.
We're going to talk about the E15 label that we see on the gas pump. But first off, I do want to give a shout out to Nexstar Corporation. Jackie's chair is not near as comfortable as the one that's over there when I sit in it. So you might want to consider an upgrade. I don't know if she said anything or not, but anyway, yeah, we just touched on it a little bit last week, but it's the label that's on the gas pump for E15, and here's a picture. You can see the one on the left is the original one that came out, the one that people are used to seeing.
Okay.
And it says, you know, for use only in 2001 newer passenger vehicles and flex fuel vehicles. And then there's a disclaimer that says, you know, don't use it in other vehicles. Certainly don't use it in boats, you know, weed eaters, chainsaws, you know, small gasoline engines. And then earlier this summer, you can see on the right, I took that picture, and you can kind of see how that label is put over the old one.
Oh, yeah, so really high tech. They even took the time to remove the old one.
No,
okay.
they stuck it over
the top. Right on top of it.
And there's a reason they did that, but the confusion and the question I have is now it says E15s use it only in flex fuel vehicles. And of course, you know, still don't put it in your chainsaw and your lawnmower.
All right, that is, you mentioned this, but I haven't paid attention to those kind of labels for a while because we don't use that type of product in our diesel car.
Exactly.
So I hadn't seen it, but I didn't realize it was that subtle of a change.
Yeah. So I mean, first off, for those that maybe didn't watch in July or aren't sure, I mean, what is E15? E15 is gasoline blended with 15% ethanol, 15% alcohol, and it was introduced in 2012, and it was really starting to gain traction, gain popularity because at least in our state, there's some tax breaks and stuff, and it's a way to save money at the pump. You can save money when you buy your fuel.
It's less expensive to create that.
Exactly. So it was kind of starting to gain traction and become popular and stuff, and then that label popped up and basically says only put this in a flex fuel vehicle, which is confusing to me. Because if you have a flex fuel vehicle, most places that sell E15 sell E85. Why wouldn't you just buy the E85?
Right.
And so the reason for that label, the EPA came out with that. And you're going to see that label, the reason they stuck it over that, they're going to peel that label off sometime this month. Later this month, you'll see that go away. And the reason it's there is purely from an emissions standpoint with the EPA. So there's a government law, an EPA law, that talks about during the summer season. We've talked about winter blend and summer blend fuels, and it talks about fuels that contain over a certain percentage of additives need to be restricted or not sold in the summertime because they create more smog, more emissions. You know, when the weather's changed in the summertime, the smog kind of hangs around a little longer and hangs a little lower. So it's purely for an emissions standpoint. Now, the argument that comes about is that the alcohol actually burns cleaner, and E15 has less pollutants, less smog, less reason to fall in that category. And there's an argument whether or not that's true, but at the end of the day, the blanket law that the EPA has is if you have over a certain amount of additives, that fuel either cannot be sold or in this case can be restricted to a flex fuel vehicle.
Okay.
So the fuel hasn't changed.
It's the same stuff.
It's the same stuff.
Okay.
If your car ran fine on E15 before, it would run fine on E15 now, regardless of that label that's on there.
Right.
But it is kind of a slam to the ethanol industry and the corn growers because people see that all of a sudden they're like, oh, you know, I can't use this in my car anymore. And you know, it would be nice if they would just figure out whether or not it really is an emissions advantage or detriment, and not relabel it if that's not the case.
Right now, the original label mentioned 2001 and newer vehicles.
Correct.
Is that still applied? Does it still apply to 2001, or should it be the 2012 or something like that?
That's the can of worms that we kind of opened up.
Well, that's what we have to do here.
Exactly.
We have to explain, because there's people out there going, well, can I? The question is, can I put E15 in my car?
Exactly.
Well, they put them in every NASCAR race car. Let's put it that way. They trust it for those vehicles.
Yep. And even more than E15. I mean,
the Indy cars.
Yeah, they're running straight alcohol. But the label on there, it says 2001 and newer. That's from the EPA. That's not from the people that engineered and built the cars.
Okay.
And the manufacturers, all of them say don't use it in anything, pre-2012, because E15 wasn't out, so they couldn't engineer the car.
They couldn't design the components for
something that wasn't available.
Okay.
And so, their take is this car was not designed for this fuel. Don't use it in there. AAA takes that same standpoint. Now, I've talked to many people that say I've used this in my 2004 and I've never had a problem.
So if you're using regular, what they call ethanol, or regular 10%, E10,
yeah,
and you had no problems with it, and people have switched over and tried the E15 and they have not experienced any problems, you'd be good with it.
I personally have not seen a problem on a vehicle pre-2012 using E15.
Okay.
I've not seen that. However, I tend to go with what the people who designed and engineered the vehicle. I mean, my advice would be, if you've got a 2013 and later and the manufacturer has approved E15, by all means use it. It saves you money. It's good for the economy. It's good for Iowa. It's good for agriculture.
There you go. Any questions, give Ron a call here, 225-9090, or ask RonTheCarGuy.com.